Okay, let's unpack Reddit's Q3 2025 financial results. This report, well, it feels pretty pivotal. It's not just about, impressive growth. It feels like the moment they really delivered on that big promise from the IPO, achieving significant sustained profitability. So today we're diving deep into RDDT's performance. We'll focus right now on this financial breakthrough and their strategy going forward.
Yeah, and what jumps off the page immediately is just the sheer scale of the operation now. Total revenue, it shot up to $585 million. That's a huge 68% increase year over year.
Wow, 68%.
And if you zoom in on their main engine, advertising revenue, that performance was even stronger, up 74%, hitting $549 million.
That kind of revenue acceleration is, well, it's phenomenal. But the real story here, I think, is the efficiency that came with it. On a GAAP basis, the company reported this massive shift to profitability. Net income reached $163 million.
Right.
And to put that in perspective for you, that's a 28% net margin, and it's an improvement of $133 million from the same quarter last year. I mean, that's a company really turning the corner, not just inching towards it.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how they managed this margin leap. They hit an adjusted EBITDA of $236 million. That translates to a pretty eye-watering 40.3% margin.
40.3%.
Now, why is that 40% figure so important? You might remember that was the key profitability goal they set out when they listed the company. And honestly, they've achieved it much faster than a lot of people expected.
That is a serious validation of the business model, isn't it? Hitting 40% adjusted EBITDA in the social media space. That's extremely challenging, given all the investment needed in AI, infrastructure, international expansion. So did they achieve this by, drastically slashing spending, or is this a genuine scaling effect?
It really looks like a genuine scaling effect. That's the definition of efficiency, right? If you look at the financial engineering, their total revenue grew 1.8 times as fast as their total adjusted costs and expenses year over year.
1.8 times faster.
That multiple, that ratio, that's the engine driving that 40% margin. They're basically extracting more revenue from their existing setup while keeping new operational costs pretty tightly controlled.
Which brings up the sustainability question right away. They're generating cash flow efficiently too, right? $185 million in operating cash flow, $183 million in free cash flow.
Yeah, strong numbers. And that cash flow improved by over $113 million year over year.
So they have the capital, and they have the positive cash cycle to keep investing.
Precisely. That liquidity, it provides the foundation for what comes next. The aggressive product strategy, especially hitting that international market hard.
Yeah.
They aren't just cutting costs, they seem to be investing smartly. And that cash flow lets them absorb volatility and really double down on growth without needing outside money.
Okay, so let's talk about the source of that revenue, the users. The company is getting paid by an increasingly massive and active base. Daily active uniques, we'll just call them DAU cref, up 19% year over year to 116 million.
116 million daily.
And weekly active uniques, WAUQ, they're up 21%, crossing that sort of psychological barrier of 443 million, almost 500 million weekly.
Yeah, and the breakdown of that user growth is really key to understanding their product strategy. The traditional logged-in user base grew at a solid 14%, which is good. But it's the casual visitor base, the logged-out users, that are truly accelerating. They grew 24% year over year.
Huh. So we're seeing Reddit successfully capture that lurker market, the person who lands on a thread maybe from a Google search but doesn't necessarily create an account?
That's exactly right. That massive logged-out growth, it signals their efforts to improve site visibility, SEO, overall usability for casual visitors. It's paying dividends. It's kind of tuning Reddit from just a community platform into a bona fide internet utility.
And geographically, the split in user acquisition is pretty stunning. US DAUQ grew a respectable 7%, okay? But international DAUQ absolutely surged, growing a massive 31% year over year.
41%.
That's clearly where the high volume growth is concentrated.
And this is, I think, the central tension of the entire report. It raises a critical question about their long-term strategy and, crucially, monetization. Because while that international growth is incredibly valuable for building future scale, the financial returns per user still lag dramatically behind the U.S.
Great. Give us the hard numbers on that monetization gap, because it really is the most surprising detail in the whole source stack.
Right. So we're looking at average revenue per unique ARPU.
Yeah.
Globally, ARPU jumped a healthy 41% to $5.24. That's good progress.
$5 globally. Okay.
But the gap between markets is stark. US ARPU is a powerful $9.04, and that was up 54% year over year.
$9 in the U.S.?
But the international ARPU is only $1.84, even though it also grew strongly, up 39%.
Wait a minute, $9.04 versus
So nine.
$1.84.
Big difference.
So if the international audience is growing, what's it, 4 times faster than the U.S. audience? But each non-U.S. user generates nearly 5 times less revenue than a U.S. user. What does that imply about the maturity of their non-U.S. ad markets? Is it just a supply issue? Like they don't have enough advertisers targeting those countries yet?
That really is the crux of the issue. In the U.S., the ad market is mature, right? Reddit's been investing in high-yield ad products there for years. Internationally, they have massive traffic, yes, but they haven't yet scaled the ad tech, the sales force, or maybe the local relevance needed to capture comparable ad spend. So it's both a current challenge and, frankly, probably the single biggest potential opportunity for accelerated revenue growth looking into 2026.
Yeah, I can see that. If they can just close that ARPU gap by even, say, 50%, that's potentially hundreds of millions in additional revenue, given the sheer volume of international users they're pulling in.
Exactly. And the product strategy they detailed in the shareholder letter, it seems explicitly designed to tackle this gap.
Okay, so let's shift from what they earned to how they plan to execute. How do they close that gap and keep that 40% margin performance going? CEO Steve Huffman emphasized that, 444 million people come to Reddit weekly for authentic conversations they can't find anywhere else?
Hmm. The strategy seems designed to leverage that uniqueness.
Yeah, the shareholder letter laid out 3 sort of interlocking strategic focus areas. The first is reinforcing the core product. This means redesigning the user experience, making it more modern, clean, search-forward interface. But crucially, they're also integrating AI tools, specifically to help interpret complex subreddit rules, which should theoretically reduce friction for new users trying to contribute.
Makes sense. Making it easier for people to participate seems essential when you've got 31% international user growth. If they land there and can't figure out the local rules or content quickly, they'll just bounce. And that ties directly into the second pillar, right? Search. Absolutely. The goal seems to be moving beyond just being a place where unique content ends up and becoming more of a primary search destination itself. We already know the behaviors there. Over 75 million weekly active uniques searched on Reddit in Q3.
75 million. Wow.
And their investment in Reddit Answers, which uses that unique user-powered voting to validate and lift up the best community answers, that seems effective. Query volume there was up 20% quarter over quarter.
Yeah, this makes perfect sense in a world where, Google searches increasingly lead to Reddit for genuine non-AI answers. They're basically monetizing the inherent value of their unique user-generated data.
And this strategic push into search directly enables their third pillar. And this is probably the most important one for future monetization, internationalization.
Okay, so how exactly are they leveraging product and search to drive that growth outside the U.S. and tackle that ARPU disparity we talked about?
Well, first, to drive that top-of-funnel growth and engagement outside the U.S., machine translation is now available in 30 languages. That's kind of foundational.
30 languages.
But what's really interesting here is their localization strategy. They call it the content-first framework.
A content-first framework. What does that involve, and why do they need it?
Well, they apparently pioneered this successfully in India, where they actively curated and cultivated local language and culture-specific communities before they really ramped up monetization efforts there.
Okay. Build the community first.
Exactly. And now they're expanding this framework to new priority markets, places like Australia, Brazil, Germany, and France. They seem to know that simply translating the interface isn't enough. You need locally relevant content to actually keep those new international DAUQ engaged.
So it's about nurturing the supply side of content first, which then attracts the local demand side, the local advertisers. This connects the product strategy right back to closing that ad revenue gap we discussed earlier.
Precisely. And the advertising technology investments are critical here for making those international users profitable eventually. They saw major improvements from investing in AI and ML models, specifically designed to optimize ad performance for lower funnel objectives, things like actual conversions, app installs. Because if the ads are more effective for the advertiser, well, they're willing to pay more regardless of the geography, right?
And we saw concrete proof of them expanding their reach to institutional advertisers too. The launch of Reddit Pro Tools sounds like a potential game changer for attracting major publishers.
It really could be. Reddit Pro Tools are tailored specifically for publishers. Early adopters like the Associated Press, the New York Times, NBC News, They can now sync their content feeds, automatically import articles, and most importantly, track specific performance metrics like views, upvotes, clicks within Reddit communities.
That definitely shifts the conversation with publishers from just we generate traffic to we generate measurable, high-quality engagement. It makes Reddit feel like a necessary part of the publisher distribution stack.
Yeah, it transforms Reddit from maybe this kind of nebulous community-driven site into more of a professional, measurable engagement platform,
Yeah.
which dramatically improves their appeal to those large institutional ad budgets.
Okay, let's wrap this up and look ahead. The market is always focused on future expectations. What guidance did Reddit provide for Q4 2025?
They delivered a very confident outlook, actually. They estimate Q4 2025 revenue to be in the range of $655 million to $665 million.
Okay, strong finish to the year expected. And profitability.
Still looking strong. Q4 2025 adjusted EBITDA is estimated to be in the range of $275 million to $285 million. So yeah, it looks like they're keeping the pedal down on both high growth and efficiency right into year-end.
So this deep dive really shows a company that, number one, successfully executed its IPO commitment, hitting that 40% adjusted EBITDA margin. And number two, simultaneously set the stage for potentially massive future expansion through that aggressive international user acquisition. The combination of sustained efficiency and high volume user growth. That's what feels fundamentally different about this report compared to prior quarters.
Absolutely.
So we've covered the growth, the profit, the strategy. If you're tracking this company heading into 2026, what's the one thing that you, the listener, really need to mull over right now?
Well, okay. The shareholder letter mentioned Reddit is now the #3 most visited site in the U.S., according to SEMrush data from October 2025. Now, given that they are aggressively investing in machine translation and that local content-first framework to make the site a primary search destination globally, the critical question, I think, for the next, say, 18 months is this. How dramatically will they manage to close that enormous ARPU disparity between the U.S. user generating $9.04 and the international user at just $1.84?
That $9 versus $2 gap.
Right. If their strategy succeeds and those international monetization rates even partially converge, let's say just halfway to the US rate, what does that imply for their overall growth trajectory and potentially their valuation? Especially looking out to 2026, it's a really spectacular potential upside that seems built right into the current numbers if they can execute on that international piece.